Dr. Philip Phillips. I'm Associate Dean of the University Honors College. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody to our Fall 2023 Honors Lecture Series on the history of the Honors College. And I think you'll agree that we have had some really good speakers so far this year, and it's really exciting for us to be celebrating this milestone and to think about how we ourselves are part of the history of the Honors College. So we've tried to put together a group of speakers this semester to talk to us about different aspects of the college. And of course we've heard from Dean Weil and also from our founding director, Dr. G. McCash. We've had various speakers and we've learned lots of things. Today we have a former student of the Honors College and someone I'm always pleased for him to come over here, and he's always pleased to come, so it works out very well. Our speaker is Collin McDonald. He has been a passionate aviation educator in both collegiate and private settings for over a decade. He received his pilot's license in 2009 and became a flight instructor a few years later. He's assisted in developing flight schools in the Middle Tennessee region that are still training pilots today. And I believe you were a pilot when you arrived at MTSU.
Yes, sir.
You were a pilot. Okay. Mr. McDonald received the Buchanan Fellowship as an incoming freshman to MTSU in 2017. His undergraduate degree was in aviation maintenance management, further rounding out his aviation background as a pilot, flight instructor, and aircraft mechanic. His crowning achievement as an undergraduate, as it will be for many of you here, was the completion of his thesis. In his case, it included a flight across the United States that recreated the first transcontinental flight that was flown in 1911. Kind of hard to beat that. It's really, really amazing. And he gave us, recounted his experiences, showed photographs, really an amazing work. This was part of his undergraduate creative project, as I've said, to graduate from the University Honors College. In addition to that, he was part of the first group to go to Italy with our Honors in Italy program. And that's a program now that we have done 3 times already, and we're planning to do again this coming summer in 2024, in May of 2024. So be on the lookout for information sessions about it. Ms. Brumfield and I will be leading that program. We'll have information sessions and we'll invite you to come. It's a great opportunity. Perhaps he'll talk about this a little bit today. So after graduation, Mr. McDonald relocated to Papua New Guinea, where he served as an aviation missionary pilot. He provided logistical support to national and ministry organizations in remote regions otherwise impossible to access. Fortunately for us, he returned to MTSU in 2020 to pursue a graduate degree in aviation safety and security. He served as a mechanic for the Aerospace department for 2 years and taught as a graduate teaching assistant in the maintenance management program. In 2022, he became a faculty member in the Aerospace department here at MTSU, teaching professional pilot classes with a unique perspective of both a pilot and a mechanic. And those of you who are in our aviation program and learning to be professional pilots, I hope that you'll get the opportunity to take a class with him. I think it would be a great experience. His research has focused on aviation education and mental health and industry. Mr. McDonald looks forward to a career training the next generations proficient aviators. And we are very pleased to have him with us here today, so please join me in welcoming Collin. Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Let me get situated up in here. There we go. That will work. So, I know that you guys have had a ton of probably really great lectures that have occurred so far in this series, looking at the history of the Honors College. And so hopefully I'm not going to break that record today. But what I do want to do is I want to point out that what you've gotten to hear so far, from what I've seen on the list, from what I've seen as looking over the flyer, is you've gotten to hear a lot of people that have shaped what the department, if you want to think of it like that, what the University Honors College has become. What you guys are getting to hear today, and what I'm hoping to give to you all, is the ability to help it shape what it'll be over the next decade or even the next 50 years. It has gotten off to a great start, and we have the opportunity to carry that ball, carry that torch, so to speak, into the next few generations of educators. And maybe no one in this room will go off to become a collegiate educator, but your connection to the Honors College, as I have come to find out, is a permanent one. You don't graduate from the Honors College, you simply go through it. You'll always be a honors student once you are here at MTSU. And I sort of, with that backdrop, as the first real student, I think, that has come back and spoken, I wanted to talk about the fact that the Honors College is an opportunity. Does anybody know, or can anybody phrase what you might think the definition of an opportunity is? Nobody? All right.
It's a chance that you're able to take or can take.
That is, it's almost spot on what Webster says. So it is a circumstance that allows for something to occur. But that's exactly what you're saying, it's just the chance. An opportunity isn't something that's guaranteed, but it sets you up to be successful. An opportunity gives you the chance. So really, success in that regards falls on the individual who has the opportunity. If you're sitting here, you have that opportunity right now. So I wanted to talk about what opportunity awaits and how to really capitalize on being an undergraduate honors student today. I do appreciate the intro. One thing I will say is I came in as a Buchanan Fellow in 2013. I had a typo in that bio, I'm sorry. I graduated as the class of 2017. We came in 2013. And are there any Buchanans in the room? There we go. All right, a few. Awesome. So really great program. I know everyone's aware of what it is, but sometimes we forget just how important each of us can be. And several of these photos that you'll see are some of my best friends still that were Buchanans that went with me on some of these events, that we did some stuff together. When I came into the Honors College, it was very, very short a time frame before I came in that for the very first time I saw this quote, which is attributed to Edmund Burke, and it does have a flavor of antiquity to it, so please don't take any offense to this. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men, and we'll include all of us as humankind in that, to do nothing. And really I found that interesting because it's almost the sheer simplicity of that is almost startling. That if you just simply go through and do nothing, that there's an opportunity wasted. And so when I came here to the University Honors College, it wasn't that I was looking for these opportunities. It wasn't that I wanted to do something great. I just was at the right place at the right time to be mentored and to be guided along. And there were several things, there's several of these opportunities that you guys have probably heard about or that you have maybe gotten to participate in. One of the most memorable things that I got to do, and this was either in my sophomore or junior year, was to be part of the Institute of Leadership for Excellence, ILE, which I believe meets basically right in the middle of May, right after the spring semester ends, or at least that's what it did for us. This was a great opportunity, and really everything that we talk about today is going to be an opportunity, so I apologize for just repetitively using that word. But what makes the Honors College so unique is it takes us all out of our individual silos of chemistry or physics or speech or education or aviation. And it puts us in a room with individuals who don't think like us, who don't take the classes that we take, and it allows us to learn from each other. And that was really showcased in ILE. ILE really gave the opportunity for me to set beside somebody who was in microbiology as well as somebody who was in education and gain from their perspectives. And that's one of the really, really cool things that the Honors College allows. But it's not just classroom scenarios that we get as well. There's plenty of other opportunities, whether it's service, and I apologize, there's going to be some photos of me in here with a goofy face. Apparently that was a trademark thing back in the day. But there's opportunities for service, to where those same people you get to walk along beside and serve, whether it's in the community or in organizations. During my time here, I was a member of ODK, Omicron Delta Kappa, as well as Phi Kappa Phi, and actually had the privilege of serving as the student vice president for a year in Phi Kappa Phi. Along with several of my other friends here, the group that we kind of went through, a few Buchanans ahead of us, the Buchanans with us, and some other honors college students as well. And as Dr. Phillips alluded to, I was very fortunate to be on the study abroad trip, the initial or inaugural study abroad trip to Italy in 2014. And now that I've gone back and looked through some of these photos, for whatever reason, I'm always standing by Dr. Phillips. But I also got an A in the class, so I don't really know if those two things were connected or not. But
you're a good writer. Very good student.
But one of the things that was crazy to me about this trip is, as an aerospace student, here I am considering what I need to do, and I know in your seat right now, you're thinking of, I need to get through this degree. Like, I need to figure out the most effective way to go from where I am to graduation. And I know that because you're in the Honors College. You're trying to take advantage of what you can. You're trying to be the best that you can, because you see right now a goal, a distant goal, of whether it's an occupation, making a difference, a career, something along those lines is propelling you on what you're doing right now. And so when I had the opportunity to go on this Italy trip, initially I thought, it's kind of a waste of my time. Like, it's not gonna be connected to my aerospace career, it's not gonna be connected to the things that I'm studying. But I allowed several of my friends who ended up going on this trip to convince me, and it was one of my most favorite memories as an undergraduate student. And it amazed me because we would be, yes, it was beautiful, and yes, this is in Pompeii there with the dormant volcano in the background, and that's a sunset shot over a bridge in Florence. But not only did you have the history and the beauty of Italy and all of the cities that we went to in Rome and the Vatican and Pisa, but you also had beauty in the history as well. Before this trip, I would have never been able to tell you who Boethius was. But through Dr. Phillips and the books we read, the things we studied on that trip, it just made me more well-rounded as a student. It gave me perspective. It took me out of my normal silo, my normal comfort zone, you might say, and it just made me a more well-rounded individual, which has resulted in a better critical thinker. And that's one of the skills, whether you realize it or not right now, that the Honors College is giving you. You are more considerate of someone's opinion, whether you realize it or not yet. You are more considerate of someone's opinion because of the fact that you're not all aerospace students and you're not all chemistry students. You have discussions, you have dialogues in this type of setting, in your honors type of classes. And some of these are just great friends that I speak to on a regular basis. I'll point one of them out, this one right here. I speak to him at least weekly because that's my brother. And so we see each other on a routine basis. But she is in, where's not Sheen right now? She's in North Texas studying as a teacher. Last that I heard, Evan, who is right here, is at the state of Tennessee in the Aeronautics Division. Caleb's just Caleb. I don't know what he's doing. He's kind of a free spirit. But Madison, she's here in Murfreesboro. And what I'm trying to say is a lot of these people went over as classmates and left as friends. And the same transition really took place. Obviously, there was a level of respect there, but getting to go with Dean Weil and Miss Linda, as well as Dr. Phillips, you really got to know the honors faculty as individuals. And it was amazing to see Dr. Phillips get giddy over a 1,000-year-old manuscript that we were getting to touch. I don't remember the exact time period, but it's just interesting to watch how it's not just something that they teach, it's part of their being, it's who they're coded as. And so for those of you that have not considered taking a study abroad, for the reasons that I've mentioned, it doesn't really line up with the course of study that you're in. It doesn't make sense to go ahead and do it. You don't need to. I cannot recommend it more for you because of what it will give you in the value of perspective. It is one of those opportunities. And another opportunity that each of you that successfully graduate from the Honors College will get is the opportunity to practice research in the form of a thesis project. Now I know that's what everybody's excited about. I know everybody wants to think about that because from about, I don't know, before I came into the Honors College until it was done, it was this big looming cloud of doubt and mystery that I had to somehow navigate and get through. Anybody else had that experience? Yes. Okay. So when you see a project like I'm about to do, this is not the threshold. This is kind of like the cap. I mean, I guess we could send somebody to space, but this was excessive. But what was amazing is I had a group of individuals around me who not only trusted me, but helped me with the tools I needed to be successful in what I wanted to do. So there was the two options, a thesis project that was research-based, which is excellent, it's great, but I fly planes. So I wanted to see if I could incorporate that into my project. And I was very fortunate to have some good advice from the Aerospace department, mentors at the time, and I took a very historically important flight, the very first transcontinental flight. It was flown in 1911 by a guy named Cal Rogers. This is him right here. And I know you cannot see it from there, but if you think about the Wright brothers airplane, or the very, very first open cockpit biplane, kind of a plane that looks like it shouldn't be flying, that's what he flew across the United States. He did it in pursuit of a prize. There was a $50,000 prize to the first person who could go across the United States in 50 days. And setting in Kansas City, after multiple setbacks and multiple accidents, on day 50, his lead mechanic, who was also the Wright brothers mechanic, looked over at him and asked him basically what he wanted to do. And he said, I don't care if I get a nickel, I'm going to be the first person to cross the United States by air. So that's the kind of spirit, the kind of attitude that this guy had. And he would become the first to cross the United States by air. That event sparked so much interest in research and development that very shortly after this, in 1914, the first airliner down in Tampa Bay, Florida, or I'm sorry, St. Pete, Florida, crossed Tampa Bay, was formed. And it revolutionized air travel. Until this point, people were not using it for anything outside of daredevil acts and stunt flying. And it was at this point that a lot of industry, what would become industry individuals, realized we can create a way to successfully fly across the United States doing this. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to recreate that flight. So this was an aircraft that I owned at the time and flew up to New York, where he left out, went over to Chicago, dropped down to Dallas following his original route, and then went out to LA. And it took me 28 days, and it was about 86 hours of flying across some of the most rugged and beautiful terrain that I've ever gotten to see. It was truly the experience of a lifetime. And just like Roger's trip ended up sort of spurning a development in research and development for aircraft, my goal was to help promote aviation education to youth. At the time, I was a junior in college, and I was flying by myself across the United States. And so, not as successful at doing that as I would have hoped. I mean, probably a half dozen news articles or news interviews along the way, as well as some larger ones when I got back to Murfreesboro. But that project, just completing it, opened the door for many more opportunities. Some of those opportunities including getting to fly one of the only replica aircraft that exist, that the Wright brothers would have a similar style of aircraft that the Wright brothers would have had. Now it's modern and it's safe, but it's still wide open cockpit, and there's a handful of people who've ever gotten to fly this thing, and I just happened to be one of them because of that original trip. I met the great nephew of the Wrights, who gave me a tour of the Wrights' home while on that trip. And during it, I made many more connections that have become lifelong, either acquaintances or relationships that have been permanent for me since doing that trip. There's the route. I know this is kind of hard to see because it's grainy, I apologize. But here would be Murfreesboro right here. I shot out to the East Coast, went all the way up to New York, bounced around, came down and up to Chicago following Roger's original route, went down to Dallas, out to El Paso, on out to LA, and then just made a straight shot coming home. Minus this little joggle right here, which is the Grand Canyons. I mean, I was out west, I had to go by it. So, a really, really cool chance that I had to take, and what could have just been seen as a, what can I do to meet the threshold of the minimum requirements for this thesis project? And because of those that supported me, those that were around me that said, you could do this if you wanted to, they allowed me to pursue really an incredible project. It's not incredible because I did it. I mean, if I had the option right now, I'd go to it and start it all over again. Like, that's how much I enjoyed doing this. But it did make some way for me. I was able to do a Eureka project to discuss what I had done and the importance of it in, especially with an upcoming pilot shortage at the time. Things that I could have recommended, things that I could do to help the next generation of aviators come on board, which does include my current career path, coming back and being a faculty member here at MTSU. Because of the project, I got a national award from a Aviation Technician Education Council, ATEC. It's a maintenance or aircraft mechanic education group that gave me their James Rardon Aviation Maintenance Student of the Year Award. It's given out to one maintenance student in the entire United States, and I received it in every year, and I received it in 2017 because of this project. This is my thesis advisor there, Dr. Paul Craig. He's still in the Honors College, or I'm sorry, he's still in the Aerospace department. He is just a individual that runs our graduate program currently. So when I talk about these opportunities, I know that what you're looking at right now is a really big profile, so to speak, project that I completed. And yeah, it looks great, but what I have found is when I tell this to honors aerospace students, it almost intimidates them even more than if I just hadn't said anything at all. And so what I will preface this with is you can do as much as you want to, because normally what Dean Vile, what Dr. Phillips, what Dr. Mary will do is they will be there for you to support you. But if you're not going to be proactive and you're not going to be diligent about pursuing this on your own, then the results of that will kind of shine through a little bit. I jokingly say I met with Dr. Craig twice, once to get him to sign the papers to go, once to get him to sign the papers when I got back. And that's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I got to develop all the things that I was going to do. I developed a safety procedure for the trip. I developed a backup plan in case something were to go wrong. And there was all these parameters that we put on that, but it's really up to you. And when this comes to a research project, when this comes to a creative project, what the best advice that I could give somebody that is pursuing or starting to think about what they're going to do for a thesis is, if it doesn't scare you a little bit, it's probably not big enough. Do something that right now you think, man, that's gonna be a lot of work. Yeah, it would be cool, but that's gonna be that's gonna be a challenge. Because if that's not where it's at, then there's so much potential in that project. If your career is gonna focus on research, you have so much potential to set a huge foundation that you can just build on as you go out into a graduate career or pursue a doctorate. There is so much potential if you're not going to do that, and you're going to be like me, as I initially thought, a practitioner in an industry somewhere, to do an easy creative project, or one that's not easy, so to speak, but one that doesn't challenge you. And that is not a trap, but it is something you can get lulled into, to get it over with, and to get out the door. And I highly recommend you have been given the circumstances, the opportunity, to take what you're getting in the Honors College and to capitalize on it going forward. Whether that is a study abroad, whether that's some of the things we haven't even mentioned here. I'm sure, did Ms. Laura do something on the fellowships and scholarships?
She will be.
Okay, so there you go. So coming up, you're gonna get one on the Gilman and all kinds of the fellowships and the scholarships that we have. And everyone that's been here, whether it's Dr. McCash, who sort of kicked this thing off, or myself, or others that are coming up, they're all saying a little bit of a different thing, but we're all telling you the same thing. There's an opportunity that has been laid, there's an opportunity that has been given, and now it's up to you to decide what you're going to do with it. Not just for your career, but even to a degree for the future of the Honors College. I had the privilege of being at the 50th luncheon the other day, and it was great to hear a student's perspective on his experience here at the Honors College. And it was just another example of the impact that being in this program with the unique people sitting to your left and right can have on a student. I have practiced this a dozen times, and I am not I don't go home and read poetry in the evenings. It's more of a technical manual for me. But there's a great poem that when I was homeschooled growing up, and during school we were required to memorize this poem. My brother and I, who were the same age, and it really does encapsulate everything that I would like to leave with you guys in this discussion of my experience and hopefully your experience in the Honors College. Edward Rowland Seal wrote a poem with the simple entitlement of opportunity. And so I'm going to read it just so that way I don't mess this up. This I beheld, or dreamt it in a dream. There spread a cloud of dust along a plain, and underneath the cloud, or in it, raged a furious battle, and men yelled, and swords shocked upon swords and shields. A prince's banner wavered, then staggered backwards, helmed by foes. A craven hung along the battle's edge and thought, had I a sword of keener steel, that blue blade that the king's son bears, but this blunt thing, he snapped it and flung it from his hand, and lowering crept away and left the field. Then came the king's son, wounded, sore-bested, and weaponless, and saw the broken sword, hilt buried in the dry and trodden sand, and ran and snatched it, and with battle shout, lifted afresh, he hewed down the enemy and saved a great cause that day. The gist of that poem states that the same tool was used by two different individuals, and it was the perspective of the king's son that won a victory, not the weapon. Each of you have been given the exact same opportunity, the exact same chance, the exact same circumstance in this department. I know personally we all have different things we have to overcome, whether it's in our family life or our personal life. But what the Honors College does is it takes away a lot of barriers for each of us to be the best that we can be. And going forwards, it's going to make a difference, not just before you walk across that stage, but when you do. It's shaped my career path. It's what's brought me back to MTSU. It's what's given me a desire to convert a career that I was hopefully going to be flying missions aviation in Papua New Guinea, to coming back and really changing the mission that I had to helping students to be the safest aviators that they can be. And so that may be an over somber way of putting that, or an over serious way of stating that fact. But to me, there's nothing more profound, nothing more incredible than the fact that we have an honors college. And if it weren't for those that came before us, we wouldn't be taking advantage of it. And it is up to us to live up to the name of it. And so I'm very thankful for your time and attentiveness here. I know this might be a tad bit shorter than anticipated, but I just wanted to leave any room for questions, as well as I really wanted to focus on those two items, the Italy trip and the chance for my thesis. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Collin. And speaking of opportunities, now is the opportunity for you to ask questions of our speaker. He's been where you are right now, and you could ask him anything you want, and I'm sure he would be happy to respond.
May I make a comment and a question? First, what's the potato there? I told you I asked bizarre questions.
It's the broken handguard off the sword.
Okay,
So if you see
okay.
at the
It's
top,
not a
there's a
potato.
pin.
It looks like a potato from here.
It's
Okay.
a golden apple.
Okay.
The hilt.
The other thing I was going to say is, what Collin did not tell us before he left on this trip
Oh, yeah.
was that the first guy who made the trip had how many accidents along the way?
So it took him a little over 100 days to do it, and I think he had 18 different
Yes.
major accidents.
Yes.
The only component of his aircraft that actually made the trip was a single vertical support, like a piece of wood, and the oil pan. Everything else got replaced along the way.
Yeah.
I was more fortunate than that.
I actually had the same thought going through my mind when you were giving this presentation, but I was also thinking that that you more than earned that national award for aviation mechanics, because while you didn't have any disastrous events happen on your transcontinental flight, you did have to repair your plane more than once,
I ran
right?
into 2 or 3 different scenarios to where I actually put my soon-to-be mechanic's license to use.
Uh-huh. And he
Definitely
came back
some
and told
issues.
us about it. It's nice to learn about it after the fact than beforehand, because we would have been very concerned. But one thing among many that have impressed me about your trip and your flight was your ability to troubleshoot. And in the bigger picture was, I had an even greater appreciation for aviation's commitment to safety. You know, because you thought through potential scenarios, not just 1 or 2, but lots of potential scenarios. And I've had more than one student in aviation who has impressed upon me the importance of safety. We think about, well, you could die in a plane crash. Well, your likelihood of dying in a plane crash is very, very small, and big part of it is all the planning and all the emphasis on safety. We've had students who've written honors theses having to do with aviation safety, creating safety manuals. Dean Vile had a student several years ago who did that. So, getting off on a tangent, but yeah, we had similar concerns. Probably a good thing you didn't share that with us beforehand. So, questions? Anybody? Comments?
Right here.
We have plenty of
Yes,
time.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What was your brainstorming process like for the thesis, or did you just know exactly what you wanted?
No, I didn't know at all what I wanted to do. So, my freshman year, there's a class, Aero 1010. It's like the history of aviation up through the current industry. And during that class, I heard of the VinFizz for the very first time, which was the name. The VinFizz was a soda that sponsored that trip out west. So the plane kind of became known as the Vin Fizz. I just heard of it, and that was it. And I would say it was about my sophomore year. I'd read a story about two brothers who flew a small two-seat tail dragger plane out across the United States, and I wanted to duplicate their trip, but it was just a random trip that took place. It wasn't anything special. And it was actually Dr. Craig, my mentor, who gave me some options to think about. And so when it comes to you brainstorming, when it comes to you thinking about the thesis that you're going to do, and this is for anybody, showing up with an idea is going to help whoever your mentor becomes to put you on the right track. And that's the biggest thing. You can't just show up to somebody. I had a freshman do this just the other day and say, hey, what should I do for my thesis? Well, I don't want to relive a thesis through that individual. I want them to figure out what they're passionate about, what they want to do, and then I can help guide them. So as far as brainstorming goes, it was very, very little that I had, but I had a starting point. I wanted to fly, and I had a flight that I wanted to duplicate. And I had a purpose for doing it then as well too. And so I know that there's this thought that the mentor is this formal individual, but your mentor right now may just be your current favorite professor in whatever field of study you're in. And then it could develop into a more formal relationship down the road. And so that's what I would say for each of you. You're sitting in the class listening to something, hey, that'd be a good idea. Just jot it down. I mean, I know at this point you're thinking about it more than maybe a freshman would be. But nonetheless, it had to start somewhere. And so for me, that was the process. And not everybody's the same, but good question. Yes?
Growing up, did you ever see yourself becoming a teacher or a
Never.
professor? No.
So I tell this story, and it's hilarious. I should not tell this in front of Dean Vile and Dr. Phillips. When I graduated, I stood on the steps of the Murphy Center, and a thought passed through my mind that was not malicious. It was not anything more than factual. And the thought was, I'll never be back on this campus again. Because I wanted to go serve in Papua New Guinea long term. I wanted to fly in a very, very remote region to where sometimes life or death depended on whether or not I could get the plane in. And I liked that. I watched people do that. I still watch guys, buddies of mine, do it and post videos about it. And it was life-changing to get to do that for the year that I did it. But it was just interesting because when I graduated, I just had that thought, and it wasn't like I was upset with MTSU or anything. I loved it, my experience here. But for me, I saw it as a chapter changing. But what really happened is when I not had lost my way, but when life hit me like a ton of bricks and I could not continue to do what I wanted to do, the first place I ended up coming back to was MTSU. And it got me back on a track to where I could try to make a difference now just through training and education. So no, it was, if you'd have asked me to list out a list of 10 things that I wanted to do, teacher would have not made that list starting off when I was in high school.
Good to know, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
When did you start seriously thinking about your thesis, where you realized, like, okay, I am going to fly across the country, and to achieve that, to do ABC and everything?
So I seriously started thinking about it freshman year. The flight did not matriculate until probably the summer of probably the fall of my junior year. But it's one of those things where when you come into the honors college, I mean, I'm sure each of you are aware of this, it is that ever-looming future event that has to take place. But it shouldn't, that's almost a unfortunate perspective because it is an opportunity. It gives you the chance to explore something otherwise that maybe you would or would not. So for me, it was probably when I came in the fall, because I wanted to do it the next spring, I had, over the summer, the previous summer, so between my sophomore and my junior year, really started to think about, okay, if I were to do this, how would I do it? Didn't really jot anything down. I mean, I had a notebook of ideas, but nothing official. And in the fall, the very first thing I did was meet with Dr. Craig and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I would have to do it next summer to get it done. And it just kind of built out from there. I will say that the process, there was no major leap to get ahead. It was always fill this out, meet with an advisor, get the paperwork, fill the paperwork out for the proposal, do the proposal. It's just you ate the elephant one bite at a time. And there was never this massive leap ahead. And that's the way it's intended to be. It's intended to be a process for you to learn how to do that and how to do the research and projects. Yes?
Was your project about kind of just the experience of it, or?
So because it was a creative project, there's a little bit more, I will say, flexibility on what I was intending to do. Mine, literally, the purpose behind it was to promote an exposure to aviation training in youth. And the statistic I used to kind of do that was the upcoming pilot shortage, because at the time there was some statistical evidence that we were going to be short thousands of aviators about the year 2030. And then COVID happened, and there's been just an absolute boom in training. People that have come to aviation to address some of those issues that have come to light a little bit more than they were in 2016. Yes?
How many times, either due to new knowledge or troubleshooting or, you know, really anything, did the trajectory of your thesis and your project change?
There were some instances it was daily. So,
All right.
don't take that in a bad way, but there were some times to where we would kick around ideas, and I would come in aggressively excited about, hey, we could do this, and my mentor was really good about saying, okay, let's reel that in a little bit and think about what are you going to do if X, Y, Z happens. And so because of his experience in both research and because Dr. Craig is a great researcher, as well as practical projects, he was able to put some gutter guards up and keep me rolling down the lane. And that's really what he did. He allowed me to bounce back and forth between the edges, trust me. But I had the opportunity to manipulate that project to what it ended up becoming. And it really was a journey that I took, not one that he took me on. So that's the importance of a mentor on a project and a research project as well. Any other questions?
Another observation, or a few observations, some of the things that I'm hearing from your response to questions and your talk in general. One, about being a teacher, there were probably people who sort of knew that you would be an outstanding teacher well before you even thought that was a possibility or something that you actually wanted to do. Part of that early on was your genuine desire to help other people learn about aviation and try to thinking about aviation in the big picture, and for there to be young aviators to come along, you've got to educate those people so that they're able to do the things that they want to do. And you were part of that because you weren't a pilot just for yourself. You were a pilot to help other people. And the missionary work that you did in helping people in remote places, you know, you were serving other people. So there were probably people, Dean Vile and I were probably among those people who could see different possibilities for you. But it's not just that one, you know, you're not just one thing.
Right.
People are a lot of different things. Another thing that I heard you say, directly or indirectly, was that a project, to be a good project, needs to be one that you're passionate about. You were passionate about your project. You didn't know exactly what it was going to be or how it was going to turn out, and there were probably times you questioned, well, why did I do this, or you know, and you faced difficulty, and you got through all of that because, among other things, this was something you really wanted to do. It's something that really mattered to you. And then along with that, you mentioned pursuing something that challenges you. You know, so it's frightening enough to think about a thesis, creative project as this big thing hanging over your head. it's hard enough. But then to think, oh, well, I need to choose something that is challenging, that can be more daunting. But actually, it isn't if you are doing something you're passionate about.
Right.
Because then you don't want to do the bare minimum doing that. You want whatever you do to matter. And for it to matter, you have to challenge yourself. The other thing that you said that I appreciate, and it's related to the honors in Italy program, but other experiences in honors, is that what you can get from this experience and what you described is an opportunity to be among people from different backgrounds who study different things and have different cultural experiences that come from different places, and you learn from each other. I mean, that right there is more important than any kind of subject that you can learn in school. It's something I tell my graduate students, even if it's a class that I've taught many times over the years, the value in the class is not what I have to say. I mean, I might have some things of value to say, but the value of it is the experience. That is what everybody in the class contributes to it. So that as a professor, I learn something new every time I'm in a class. So think about that in terms of the Honors College and what you just described, and you're friends with many of the people you went on that trip with. This was something where you said you didn't read a lot of poetry, but you read the whole of the Aeneid, and you read Vita Nuova, and you read Inferno, and other things in that class, and it helped to give you a better, well-rounded kind of background. And it's important for us to push ourselves outside of our discipline and to learn from other people. So thank you for articulating all of those things.
Absolutely.
We've still got a few minutes. Over there?
I'm just curious what your favorite stop was, or favorite stops.
Oh, that's a great question. I spent 2 days in Dayton, and I only planned on spending one there. But the Air Force Museum was there, and that's where I met Stephen Wright. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, had a sister as well as some other siblings that are lesser known, and he is the great grandnephew of Orville and Wilbur. They had they still own the mansion that their father lived in, they were raised in, but it was not open for public tour. And just because I happened to run into him, get to chat with him about my project, they took me into the house, showed me stuff it's not that it's not public knowledge, but just things that were artifacts from the brothers and original drawings and sketches of what they were planning on doing at Kitty Hawk in 1903. And it was a super cool opportunity. So Dayton by far was one of my favorite. I ended up getting to spend some time with some folks in the aerospace department when I went to Dallas. It just happened to coincide to where I arrived when they arrived for a tour of the American Airlines operations headquarters. And so I happened to go with them on that and spend about a day or so with Dr. Georgiou, Andrea, and a few other people in that department. So it was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
The Grand Canyon was fun. All of it was great. So
Great.
I ended up meeting my wife in Indianapolis. We reconnected on that trip, and we got married about 2 years later. So that was kind of special.
Nice.
Opportunities. You
Yep.
just never
But as funny as it sounds, when I came back to apply for the professorship here at MTSU, in my own opinion, my experience is not, I would not, if I was looking at my own CV, I wouldn't think I had enough experience to come back and teach aviation classes, although I've got all kinds of things that I've done. But that creative project sort of inflated my experience a little bit more, in my own opinion, than I think it should have. The fact that I did what I did, that project has paved the way for me in a lot of different places, probably more than it should have, but nonetheless, things have happened after it occurred that I never anticipated. And that's the benefit that I've reaped from doing it. Yeah. Any other questions? Can I make one random statement here after teaching a class earlier today and now being on this side of that table? Ask the question. Ask the question that you think nobody else is thinking, that nobody else wants to ask. Because I cannot tell you, today I had this happen in theory, 1020. Somebody brought up a statement about something that I had said previously that was not incorrect, but what I was saying currently conflicted with that. And it opened the door for me to explain the nuances between the two. One of them was in a certain it was in a level attitude of flying. Another one was in a banking turn. And I was able to give not only that student, but everyone in the room a more detailed understanding of the topic just because they asked. I don't care what the class is. Unless your professor is just there to make a buck, which I'm not saying that that is the case in any professors at MTSU, but unfortunately sometimes we run into some professors who don't have a long-term vision for what they want to do. Asking those questions enriches your experience. And that's why you're in the Honors College. You're in a smaller setting to where you can have dialogue instead of monologue. So I just had to get that off my chest after that's happening today. So.
Any other questions or comments? Well, let's thank our speaker again.